So we're going to look at the lab determining the molar mass of an element. I'm going to walk you through some calculations with some data that I have from the lab. I don't remember whether it's real data or not. It doesn't matter. But here we have the mass of crucible in the cover, 47.31. Mass of crucible cover and silver oxide before heating, 49.06. Mass of crucible cover and silver after heating, 48.91. Now, if you remember with this lab, what we did is we had silver oxide in a crucible. It was a black powder, okay? Once we heated it, we drove off the oxygen, meaning we decomposed the silver oxide. So we had silver left in the crucible, oxygen went away. So does that make sense that our mass decreased? Absolutely. Okay? Absolutely. We should be seeing that in the lab when we do the percent composition of oxygen and potassium chlorate too. We are getting rid of the oxygen, so it should decrease. So you need to remember to use significant figures. Probably still the biggest problems that we have with calculations is dealing with sig figs. So we need to make sure we're using significant figures. Now, my very first calculation is to determine the mass of silver. So what we need to do, and this says A minus C. What I've done is A, B, and C. So in order to do this, I have to take the mass of the crucible cover and the silver, which is 48.91 grams, and I need to subtract the mass of the crucible and the cover. So by doing that, I'm going to get only the silver. So the crucible and cover is 47.31 grams. So when I do my math, 0, 6. Does that look right? 1.60 grams. Now I need to check my sig figs. Since I am doing addition and subtraction, actually I'm doing subtraction, I look, both of those are coming in the 10th hundredths place, so I need to have this in the hundredths place. So if I would have had 1.6 grams, would that have been correct? No, because I didn't have that hundredths place, that place where we have the estimation. So my mass of silver is 1.60 grams. Oops, it's the wrong way. Now, determine the mass of oxygen. Okay. So I am going to take B minus C. So I'm going to take 49.06 grams. I'm going to subtract 48.91 grams. So I need to borrow. So 8, 9, 16. Well, I don't need to borrow there. Time out. We got some bad borrowing. Bad borrowing. 49.06. So that's going to give me a 5. Now I need to borrow 0.15 grams. Is that the correct amount of significant digits, Drake? Absolutely it is. Good. So my mass of oxygen is 0.15 grams. My mass of silver is 1.60 grams. Now it says determine the moles of oxygen. The mass of oxygen from the previous slide, which was 0.15 grams, divided by the atomic mass of oxygen. So I need to get on my periodic table and say, okay, what is the atomic mass of oxygen? Well, it is 15.9994 grams. So when I take my calculator and I get 0.15 and I divide it by 15.9994, it gives me a value of 0.009375. That should be plenty. Looking at this, now, how many significant digits do I need here? Page. 2 sig figs. Now remember, I've now switched to division, right? So division counts up the numbers. So I have 2 here, I have 6 down here. Which is a smaller between 2 and 6? 2, right? So I'm going to round this to 2 sig figs, 0.0094, and I always put my label. That's mole of oxygen. 0.0094 mole of oxygen. My next calculation was to determine the moles of silver. And it's multiplying the moles of oxygen by 2. So 0.0094 moles of oxygen times 2. Now, why is this times 2? Moles of oxygen times 2. Well, if I go back and I remember, we're dealing with silver oxide, right? What is silver oxide? Ag2, 0. So for every oxygen, we have how many silvers? 2, right? That is why we are multiplying this by 2 to get the number of moles of silver. So I take my value, I times it by 2. That's an exact number. Okay, that's an exact number. So I'm going to keep my sig figs at 2. So my number is going to be 0.019 moles of silver. Okay, why is 2 an exact number? Why did I not use that? Do I know that I have 2 silver? Did I estimate that being 2 silver right here? I did not. I know I have 2 silver. So that is why that is an exact number, and I don't use that for sig figs. So my moles of silver is 0.019. Determine the molar mass of silver. Grams of silver, if I remember, I had 1.60 grams of silver divided by moles of silver. What did I just have there? 0.19? Does that sound right? Yep. So I take my mass of silver, 1.60, and divide it by 0.19, and I get a value of 80. How many sig figs? 2 sig figs? 84 grams per mole for my molar mass of silver. Now, absolute air is the calculated molar mass of silver and the value of silver from the periodic table. So I'm going to take that 84 grams per mole, and I'm going to subtract silver from the periodic table, which I believe is 107.888682. So when I do that, I'm going to get, and I can only have it to the ones place because I'm subtracting. So I'm going to get negative 24, which I believe we absolute value that. Here's the next one, the percent error. So I'm going to take the 24, divide it by 107.8682, multiply by 100. My percent error is going to be 22% error. So for the most part, if I remember right, because I graded those last week, if I remember right, people were missing sig figs because they weren't looking at their data. They were putting entire things from their calculator for their answer. Okay? So make sure we know our significant digits when we're doing our calculations.